Alright, today we're going to do something a little different and start something we're going to call Showdowns. Baseball is a place where you can compare everything, and fans always love to defend their side. Today, we're going to focus on two names that have taken the game by storm and seem to be the center of a lot of arguments. Of course, I'm talking about Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna Jr. But first, we've got to get a couple things out of the way. These two are just 2 years into their careers, and these comparisons could obviously change. Also, I am a Nats fan, and I run a Nats Twitter. Because of that, we'll be doing this comparison a little differently, but I am going to focus purely on the numbers and approach this with as little bias as possible. Only stats and facts. And with that being said, let's get it started. For Showdowns, we're going to take a look at both their offensive and defensive games and present stats for both areas. Most Showdowns will end with a decisive winner, but as I've said, we're going to do this a little differently. There'll be more on that at the end of the video. Acuna and Soto are two very polarizing figures to MLB fans right now. They both have an attitude that can make their own fans love them and annoy opposing fans. That's probably part of the reason that they've been the center for so many debates. Fans going back and forth all the time on social media, MLB Network ranking Soto just above Acuna, and MLB The Show doing the exact opposite. Let's take a look at the numbers that go into these debates. We're going to start off looking at their offensive games. This obviously is a strength for both of them, but they do have very different offensive approaches.
Soto hits one high and deep to center. Herrera going back. See you later.
As we go through this part of the video, the numbers that are presented will be 2019 numbers. And as we look at them, you'll notice that there's not much difference for most statistical areas. Soto has a small advantage when it comes to average, slugging, and on-base percentage. And then when we look over at the counting stats, Acuna has advantages in most of them, including hits, home runs, and stolen bases. Soto does have the advantage when it comes to RBIs. When looking at the batted ball numbers, it's more of the same. The numbers are pretty close across the board, and the only sizable difference would be in weighted on base average and expected weighted on base average for Soto. The other sizable difference would be an F4 for Ronald Acuna Jr. This is Fangraph's WAR, and I'm not too sure why, but that seems to be the one that I particularly focus on.
And Acuna gets a hold of one and hits it out of sight.
The X stats are something that I really love to look at. It takes into account launch angle, exit velocity, batted ball distance, and a few more variables to formulate an expected performance based purely on the batted ball. It really gives you a deeper look into what kind of hitter a player is expected to be, and obviously Soto and Acuna are both expected to be great. Taking another stat break, you'll continue to notice that Soto does lead in the majority of the categories, but for the most part, they're just small differences. If there's one thing where you'll see a big difference while looking at the numbers, it's going to be the approach at the plate. Acuna has a lot more strikeouts and a lot less walks. He walks 6% of the time less and strikes out 6% of the time more. This really is where the difference starts to show. Soto has the 5th highest on-base percentage of any 20-year-old with over 500 bats in the history of baseball. A lot of that had to do with having the 2nd most walks of any 20-year-old in the history of baseball. Only Melot had 5 more. Acuna, on the other hand, posted a season with the most strikeouts ever for a player under the age of 22. Then, if you look at the swing and miss percentages, you'll continue to see the difference in their approach. Soto swings and misses less both in the zone and outside of the zone. Again, both players are great, and you need to nitpick to find any real differences. But Soto does lead in a lot of offensive categories, and they are close in almost everything. But approach at the plate is where the difference can really be found. Now we're going to hop into the defensive games for both of these players. For this, we're going to be looking at the 2018 stats and the 2019 stats. Juan Soto is a pretty interesting player, as in 2018, he was a pretty bad left fielder, but in 2019 he showed a lot of growth. Acuna, on the other hand, has ridden his absurd athletic abilities to being one of the better young outfielders in the game. I think having to move around from left field, center field, and right field has really hurt his growth, but he still is pretty solid. Soto led in outs above average in 2019, and that's really not a surprise when we look at the catch probability numbers. Catch probability takes into account the distance a fielder must travel and the likelihood that that catch is made. When looking at the catch probability numbers for 2019, they're actually pretty interesting. Soto led Acuna in completion percentage for 5-star catches, 4-star catches, and 3-star catches, as well as 1-star catches and overall attempts.
Soto coming in, still coming, dives and makes the catch, sticks the landing, holds on for the out. The ever-improving defense in left field.
You go a little further into the stats and you actually find some more interesting numbers. Soto actually has a better jump than Acuna, as his reaction times are much better, and he also covers slightly more ground. On the other hand, Acuna takes slightly better routes. While there are some numbers that may suggest Soto has a chance to be as good of an outfielder as Acuna, most numbers suggest he's just not there yet. Acuna has a better arm, and the main fielding metrics still say that Acuna is a better outfielder. But the narrative that Soto was a bad fielder is certainly no longer correct. Soto showed massive improvements from just 2018 to 2019, and if he continues at that pace, 2020 could be even better. Hell, he even got nominated for a Gold Glove. Now, all that really meant was that he was top 3 out of the 4 that qualified for left field in the NL, but that's got to count for something, right? Now that defense is out of the way, let's take a look at Fangraph's bundle of projections. It's more of the same in most cases, as Soto leads the slash line, weighted on base average, weighted runs created plus, and of course the walk and K rates. Acuna still leads all the counting stats except for RBIs in most of the projections. One difference in the projections compared to last year is Soto actually comes out on top and wins above replacement for all of the projections. At the end of the day, projections are just that, and they're obviously not an exact science, but they're certainly fun to look at. Finally, to finish it all up, we're going to take a look at Baseball Savant's rankings. It is clear to see that these two players are in the middle of a debate that is just too close to call. You'll see that Soto does have a small advantage in the majority of offensive stats, but Acuna isn't much worse. And Acuna leads in the main defensive categories, but Soto isn't much worse. This is why I said this showdown will be a little different compared to future ones, as this one really does come down to personal preference. Either are going to be great choices. I personally would go with Soto because I value a slightly more mature approach at the plate, but you're not going to go wrong either way. Thank you guys so much for watching. If anything, I hope this can be a hub for Soto and Acuna stats to base your debates off of. Make sure to follow us over on Twitter at National Source. Like, share, subscribe, and check out some other videos while you're at it. With that being said, I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.